James Parker leaned back in the plush leather chair of his penthouse, the city skyline twinkling like a sea of diamonds beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. He took a sip of his aged whiskey, savoring the burn as it slid down his throat. The room buzzed with laughter and the clinking of glasses as his friends gathered around, celebrating yet another successful business deal that had added another zero to their already inflated bank accounts. "James, you've outdone yourself this time," shouted Mark, a tall man with a booming laugh. "What's your secret? Did you charm them with your boyish good looks?" "Or maybe it's the suit," added Sarah, a sharp-witted woman with a penchant for sarcasm, gesturing to his tailored attire. "You look like $1,000,000, and I bet you made them feel like less than that." James chuckled, basking in the attention, his ego swelling with each compliment. "It's all in the negotiation, my friends. You have to know how to play the game." He waved his hand dismissively, as if the art of business was as simple as flipping a coin. The laughter continued, a cacophony of privilege and entitlement. They shared stories of extravagant purchases, exotic vacations, and the latest luxury cars that had just hit the market. In that moment, James felt invincible, the undisputed king of his opulent kingdom. As the evening wore on, the conversation shifted to relationships. "So, James, what's the plan? You're still single, right?" Mark asked, leaning forward, his curiosity piqued. "You need to settle down. A man like you shouldn't be alone." "I'm in no rush," James replied casually, swirling the whiskey in his glass. "Why would I tie myself down when there are so many options?" "Options?" Sarah scoffed. "You mean the same shallow women who only want you for your money? You need someone who can keep up with you, someone who challenges you." James rolled his eyes. "I'll find someone when I want to. Right now I'm focused on my career." The night continued, filled with laughter and bravado, but something shifted as they stepped onto the balcony for fresh air. The cool breeze tousled their hair, and the sounds of the city filled the silence. James leaned against the railing, surveying the streets below, where the shadows of people moved like ghosts through the neon lights. It was then that a figure caught his eye, a woman sitting against the building, her clothes tattered and her hair disheveled. "What's that?" he muttered, half to himself. "What?" Mark asked, following his gaze. "Oh, you mean the homeless woman. What a sight!" James felt a strange tug in his chest, a flicker of interest mixed with disdain. "She looks like she could use a makeover." "Why don't you go down there and give her a taste of your charm?" Sarah teased, a smirk on her lips. "I bet she'd be thrilled to have a rich husband." The taunts from his friends ignited a spark of arrogance within him. "I could marry her if I wanted to," he declared, his voice dripping with bravado. "I give it a month. Just watch me." Mark burst into laughter, slapping James on the back. "You're on? You can't be serious." "I am serious," James replied, a wicked grin spreading across his face. "1 month. I'll have her wrapped around my finger." "What's the catch?" Sarah challenged, raising an eyebrow. "No catch," he said, his voice firm. "Just a simple bet. If I can marry her, I win. If not, I'll owe you all a night out." "Deal!" they all shouted in unison, laughter erupting around him, drowning out the reality of what he was proposing. With a newfound determination, James headed toward the elevator, his friends trailing behind him, still howling with laughter and disbelief. The thrill of the challenge coursed through him as he stepped into the cool night air, the laughter of his friends fading behind him. As he approached the woman, he noticed her features more clearly in the dim light. Her face was smudged with dirt, her clothes hanging loosely on her thin frame. Despite her disheveled appearance, there was a spark in her eyes that intrigued him. "Hey there," he said, trying to sound casual, but his condescension slipped through. "What's your name?" She looked up, squinting against the streetlights. "Lily," she replied, her voice rough yet steady. "Lily," he echoed, as if testing the name on his tongue. "You know, I can help you. I can offer you money, a place to stay, an opportunity." Lily's guarded expression didn't change. "Why would you do that?" James leaned against the wall, crossing his arms in front of him, the arrogance radiating from him. "Because I can. I'm a businessman. I make things happen, and I could really use a challenge. What do you say?" She narrowed her eyes, skepticism etched on her face. "And what's in it for you?" Money, of course, he replied, waving his hand dismissively, and the satisfaction of knowing I can take someone like you and turn you into something better. Lily scoffed, standing up slowly, brushing dust off her pants. You think I need saving? I'm fine as I am. James felt a flicker of irritation. You don't look fine. You look like you haven't eaten in days. People like you. People like me? She interrupted, her voice rising. What do you know about people like me? You live in a penthouse while I'm out here trying to survive. He smirked, trying to regain control of the conversation. Surviving isn't living. I can offer you a life, a chance to start over. Lily studied him, her eyes searching for sincerity beneath the arrogance. What's the catch? No catch, he insisted, though a part of him knew he was playing a game. Just a proposal. Marry me, and I'll take care of you. You'll never have to worry again. She shook her head, a mixture of disbelief and anger washing over her. You think you can just buy me? That I would agree to this ridiculous proposal? I'm not buying you, he clarified, his tone softening slightly. I'm offering you a way out, an escape from this. He gestured around as if the city itself were a prison. Lily crossed her arms, her resolve hardening. I won't be part of your game. You don't know anything about me. James leaned in closer, lowering his voice to a more intimate tone. Then let me learn. I want to prove I can mold you into someone better. Her expression shifted, a flicker of vulnerability surfacing. And what if I refuse? Then you go back to this, he said, glancing at the street around them, filled with shadows and uncertainty. I'm offering you a chance. Take it or leave it. Lily hesitated, the weight of her circumstances pressing on her. She could feel the tension in the air, the stakes rising higher than she ever anticipated. You think this is a game to me? She whispered, her voice trembling slightly. James straightened, a mix of arrogance and determination in his gaze. For me it is. But I want you to play along. Just give me a month, and if you don't like it, you can walk away. No strings attached. As he studied her, something shifted in the depths of her eyes, a glimmer of hope buried beneath layers of distrust. Perhaps it was the allure of a better life, or maybe it was the thrill of defiance against his arrogance. In a month, she said slowly, if you haven't changed your mind, we'll see. James smirked, triumphant. It's a deal then. Welcome to the game, Lily. And with that, their fates intertwined, setting the stage for a tumultuous journey neither of them could have anticipated. James Parker leaned back in his plush leather chair, the soft glow of the city lights reflecting off the walls of his penthouse. The celebration of his latest business triumph was still fresh in his mind, yet he found himself preoccupied with thoughts of Lily. The homeless woman whom he had so casually approached in the park haunted him. It was strange. He had always been a man who knew how to play the game, bending people to his will without a second thought. Yet, with her, it felt different. He was beginning to see that beneath her ragged exterior, there was a complexity he hadn't anticipated. Lily sat on the edge of the bed in the guest room of James's penthouse, the extravagant space feeling alien to her. The clothes he had bought for her hung loosely, the silk fabric feeling foreign against her skin. She looked at her reflection in the full-length mirror, unsure of the woman staring back at her. The transformation was jarring. The makeup, the jewelry, the designer clothes had been thrust upon her in rapid succession. James had insisted she wear them, claiming that they would help her fit into his world. But did she even want to fit into his world? Lily? James's voice broke through her thoughts, and she turned to see him leaning against the doorframe, a confident smile playing on his lips. What do you think? You look stunning. She forced a smile as the sun rose on the day of the wedding. A golden hue spilled across the penthouse, illuminating the opulence within. James Parker stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling mirror, adjusting his tie with meticulous precision. The thrill of anticipation coursed through him. Today, he would demonstrate his power over the world, and especially over Lily, the woman he had chosen for this peculiar challenge. His reflection smirked back at him, a visage of confidence and triumph. "James, you look like $1,000,000, a voice called from behind. It was Marcus, one of his closest friends, stepping into the room with a broad grin. "Can you believe this?" You're actually going through with it?" James turned, a glint of arrogance in his eyes. "Of course I am. I can't wait to see the look on everyone's faces when I walk down the aisle with her. They'll see that no one can resist my charm, or my money." Marcus chuckled, shaking his head. "You really think you can turn that homeless woman into your trophy wife? It's almost too easy." "Easy, perhaps. But it's also a lesson," James replied, his tone self-assured. "She'll realize that beauty is in the eye of the beholder when someone like me shows her the ropes. I'll mold her into the woman I want." Meanwhile, at a nearby community center, Lily stood in front of a cracked mirror, adjusting her dress. It was a simple second-hand gown, far from the lavish extravagance surrounding her new life, but it was the best she could find. Her heart raced, a mix of dread and reluctant hope. Could this truly be a turning point for her? Would this wedding lead to a better life, or was she merely a pawn in James's game? The ceremony was set in a grand hall, adorned with extravagant flowers and shimmering lights. Guests filled the seats, a sea of well-dressed faces, each more polished than the last. James strutted down the aisle with an air of triumph, soaking in the admiration of his peers. He felt invincible, the king of his castle, until he caught sight of Lily. She walked slowly, her head held high, but James could see the tremor in her hands and the uncertainty in her eyes. The contrast between them was stark. He, the epitome of wealth and success. She, a woman who had been living on the streets just weeks before. As she reached the altar, he could feel the weight of the moment. He was aware that everyone was watching, judging, and whispering. "Do you, James Parker, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" the officiant asked, his voice echoing through the hall. "I do," James replied, his voice booming with confidence. "And do you, Lily, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Lily hesitated, her heart pounding. The words felt heavy on her tongue. "I do," she finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper. The moment felt like a lie, yet she knew she had to play along, at least for now. As the ceremony concluded and they were pronounced husband and wife, the applause erupted. James beamed, pulling Lily into a tight embrace, completely oblivious to the tears pooling in her eyes. She felt like an actress in a play, performing a role she had not auditioned for. Following the ceremony, the reception was a spectacle of excess. James took center stage, reveling in the attention as guests congratulated him on his unconventional choice. He laughed and boasted, recounting tales of his conquest over drinks. "I told you all I could do it. Look at her. She's perfect for me now," he declared, raising his glass. Lily stood to the side, feeling increasingly misaligned with the world around her. The laughter and clinking of glasses echoed in her ears, but she felt like a ghost, drifting through a realm that didn't belong to her. The opulence felt suffocating, and the smiles of the guests felt like daggers, piercing through her facade. "Isn't she stunning?" a woman commented, her voice dripping with condescension. "I can't believe he actually pulled it off. What an interesting choice." Lily's heart sank. She forced a smile, but the words stung. They saw her as a curiosity, a spectacle, not as a person. James, caught up in the moment, didn't notice her discomfort. Instead, he reveled in their approval, basking in the glow of his perceived victory. "Lily, come here," James called out, waving her over. She hesitated before joining him, her stomach knotting with anxiety. "Do you see this, everyone?" he announced, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "This is my beautiful bride. Isn't she a sight to behold?" "Absolutely," someone chimed in. "Such a transformation." Lily forced another smile, her thoughts racing. Transformation? Was this what they called it? She felt like a project, something to be improved rather than a person with her own story. As James chatted and laughed with their guests, she felt increasingly like an outsider in her own life. After what felt like an eternity, Lily slipped away from the crowd, seeking solace in a quieter corner of the venue. She leaned against a wall, trying to catch her breath. The noise faded, and her thoughts became clearer. She remembered the nights spent huddled in parks, the kindness of strangers, and her dreams of art and expression. This wasn't who she was meant to be, and yet here she was, trapped in a gilded cage. "Hey, where did you go?" James's voice broke her reverie. He approached, drink in hand, his smile wide. "I just needed a moment," she replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "You should be enjoying this. Everyone's talking about us. We're the center of attention." He leaned closer, oblivious to the weight of her words. "I'm not sure I like being the center of attention for the wrong reasons," Lily confessed, a hint of defiance in her tone. James frowned slightly, momentarily puzzled. "What do you mean? They're all impressed. This is what you wanted, right?" "What I wanted," she echoed, frustration boiling beneath her calm exterior. "You mean what you wanted? I'm just here to play a part in your game." James's smile faltered, confusion flickering across his face. "That's not how I see it. I thought we were building something together." "Building what? A life built on a bet?" she shot back, her voice rising slightly. "You don't even see me. I'm just a trophy to you, and I refuse to be that." The atmosphere shifted, a tension settling between them. James's expression transformed from confusion to contemplation. There was a flicker of realization in his eyes, but he quickly masked it with his usual bravado. "You're being dramatic, Lily. We're married now. You need to embrace this." "I am not dramatic," she replied, more forcefully now. "I'm just trying to reclaim my identity in a world that sees me as less than I am. Your world is not mine." As she stepped away, James felt a pang of something he couldn't quite grasp. Her words echoed in his mind, challenging the very foundations of his beliefs. For the first time, he wondered if he had truly understood the depth of the woman he had chosen, or if he had merely chosen her to fulfill a shallow fantasy. The night continued, a blur of laughter and music, but for Lily, the moments of clarity were becoming more pronounced. She felt stronger with each passing minute, determined to hold on to her identity amidst the chaos. No longer a pawn in James's game, she was ready to reclaim her narrative. As the evening wore on, she vowed to herself that she would not be overshadowed by the glitz and glamour around her. She would find a way to navigate this world without losing sight of who she truly was, and perhaps, just perhaps, she could show James that there was more to life than wealth and superficiality. The journey would be arduous, but she was ready to take the first step toward her own destiny. On the night of their wedding, the opulence of the hotel room felt suffocating to Lily. The extravagant decor, with its shimmering chandeliers and plush furniture, stood in stark contrast to the turmoil swirling within her. James Parker, the man she had reluctantly married, was busy pouring champagne into crystal flutes. His back turned to her as he reveled in what he saw as a triumphant moment. She watched him, the celebration of his bet echoing in her mind like a cruel joke. "To us," he said, raising a glass to the air, his voice filled with self-assuredness. "To the ultimate conquest." Lily's heart sank at his words. She had played her part in this charade, but now, standing in the lavish room that screamed wealth and entitlement, she felt exposed and vulnerable. Her hands trembled slightly as she took a deep breath, summoning the courage to confront him. "James," she began, her voice steady despite the flutter of anxiety in her chest. He turned, a broad smile plastered on his face, but it faltered when he noticed the seriousness in her expression. "What is it, Lily? Aren't you excited? We just got married." "Excited? Is that what you think I should feel?" she challenged, crossing her arms as a protective barrier. "This is all a game to you, isn't it? Just a way to prove how powerful you are?" His brow furrowed, confusion mingling with indignation. "What are you talking about? I married you because I wanted to. I made you my wife. Isn't that enough?" "Is it?" she pressed, her voice rising slightly. "You didn't marry me for love, James. You married me to prove a point. To show off to your friends that you could take someone like me and mold me into whatever you wanted." James scoffed, the arrogance returning to his demeanor. "You're wrong, Lily. You were the one who accepted my offer. You could have walked away. You chose to play along." "Play along?" she echoed incredulously. "What choice did I really have? You held all the cards. You think money can buy loyalty or love, but it can't, not from me." He stepped closer, his expression shifting from confusion to irritation. "You think you're so noble, don't you? Acting all high and mighty because you're ugly in the eyes of society. But let's be honest, Lily, I've given you a life most people would dream of. You're in a 5-star hotel, wearing designer clothes, and you think you're better than me." Lily's heart raced, anger igniting within her. This isn't about being better than you, James. This is about recognizing that you are so blinded by your wealth that you can't see the person standing in front of you. I'm not just a trophy for you to show off. I'm a human being with feelings, dreams, and a past. Your past? He laughed, a harsh, mocking sound that reverberated around the room. What does it matter? You were homeless. You were nothing. I made you something. Made me something? She shot back, her voice fierce. You didn't make me. I was whole before I met you, even if I was struggling. You took my circumstances and twisted them into your own narrative. You don't even know me, James. You think you can change me, mold me, but you can't. I won't let you. The air between them crackled with tension, and for a moment, James stood silent, his bravado faltering as he absorbed her words. He had never encountered such defiance, especially from someone he considered beneath him, but there was something in her eyes, something wild and unyielding, that both intrigued and frustrated him. You're just angry because you're not where you want to be, James finally retorted, his tone defensive. You're lashing out because you think I've taken something from you, but I'm giving you a chance, and you're throwing it away. A chance? She replied, her voice trembling with emotion. This isn't a chance, James. This is a trap. You think you can keep me in a gilded cage and I'll be grateful for the privilege? I won't be a pawn in your game. He stepped back, his expression a mixture of shock and disbelief. I thought you were different. I thought you'd appreciate what I've done for you. You thought wrong, Lily said, her heart pounding against her chest. I'm not here to validate your ego. I won't allow you to define me any longer. In that moment, they were two opposing forces. One, a man accustomed to power and control. The other, a woman who refused to be belittled. The silence that followed was heavy, the weight of their confrontation hanging like a storm cloud. But before either could speak again, a sharp knock echoed through the room, interrupting the charged atmosphere. James frowned, glancing at the door, then back at Lily, his annoyance palpable. Who could that be? He muttered, moving toward the door. Lily's heart raced. Could it be someone from his life, someone who would further remind her of the world she felt so alienated from? Or worse, someone who could expose all the vulnerabilities she had just laid bare? As he opened the door, a familiar face appeared. An older woman with sharp features and an air of authority. Her eyes widened in surprise, and a mixture of emotions crossed her face as she took in the scene before her. Lily? The woman exclaimed, her voice a blend of disbelief and concern. What are you doing here? Lily's breath caught in her throat. Margaret? Who is this? James demanded, stepping protectively in front of Lily, his posture defensive. Margaret's gaze shifted from Lily to James, a knowing look flashing across her face. I'm an old friend of Lily's. We have a lot to discuss. Lily felt a rush of emotions as she looked at Margaret, a figure from her past that she thought she'd lost forever. The warmth of recognition contrasted sharply with the coldness of her current reality. James glanced between them, confusion etched on his face. You know her? Lily opened her mouth to respond, but the words caught in her throat. She felt the weight of their confrontation still lingering, but now, with Margaret's arrival, the air crackled with an entirely different tension, one that hinted at secrets long buried and truths waiting to be uncovered. As Margaret stepped inside the room, the atmosphere shifted. Lily could sense that this was a pivotal moment, one that could either deepen the rift between her and James or offer a glimmer of understanding. James, Margaret said, her tone firm yet measured. I think it's time we all had a serious conversation. With those words, the stage was set for revelations that could change everything. Lily's heart raced, caught between the past she had tried to escape and the present that threatened to consume her. The confrontation with James was far from over. It was only just beginning. As the door swung open, the dim light of the hotel room spilled into the hallway, revealing a familiar figure. Lily's heart skipped a beat as she recognized Sarah, her old friend from the art community they had once shared. The warmth of their past connection was a stark contrast to the coldness of her current reality. Sarah stepped inside, her face a mixture of surprise and concern. Lily, is that really you? Sarah's voice trembled slightly as she took in the scene, the opulent furnishings, the chaos of the wedding attire scattered across the floor, and James, standing awkwardly in the corner, his expression one of confusion and irritation. Lily's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Sarah, I didn't expect to see you here." James, still processing the unexpected arrival, crossed his arms defensively. "And who might you be?" he demanded, his tone dripping with condescension. "I'm Sarah, a friend of Lily's," she replied, her gaze unwavering as she met James's eyes. "I think you have some things to answer for." Lily felt the tension in the air, a palpable mix of anxiety and relief. Sarah had been one of the few people who understood her, who saw beyond the layers she had built to survive. "What are you doing here?" she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "I saw the news about your wedding, and I had to come." "You deserve to have someone know your story," Sarah said, her eyes narrowing as she turned back to James. "You think you can just play with people's lives like this? This is not a game," James scoffed, his arrogance bubbling to the surface. "You don't know anything about me. This was all a bet, a challenge to see if I could marry someone like her." "Someone like her?" Sarah echoed incredulously. "You think that's all she is? A trophy for your amusement?" Lily felt the weight of Sarah's words pressing down on her, but alongside it, a flicker of strength ignited within her. "James, it's not what you think. I'm not just a project for you to complete." James's expression shifted, confusion battling with indignation. "Then what are you, Lily? You're just some homeless woman I picked up off the streets. What could you possibly offer?" "More than you realize," Sarah interjected, stepping closer to Lily and taking her hands in hers. Lily was once a brilliant artist. She painted the most beautiful landscapes, capturing emotions that most people couldn't even put into words. She cared deeply for her community, organizing art classes for children. She had a life full of passion until everything fell apart. At these words, a veil lifted from James's perspective. He had only seen the surface, the dirt, the disheveled hair, the clothes that had seen better days. But now he was being confronted with the truth. Lily was not defined by her current situation. She had depth, history, and a heart that beat with creativity and compassion. "Why didn't you tell me?" James asked, his voice softer, almost vulnerable. "I thought you just didn't want to be with me." Lily felt the sting of tears in her eyes, but she held them back. "I didn't want to be a charity case," she replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "I wanted to be seen for who I am, not for what I've lost." James's mind raced as he grappled with the sudden influx of emotions and realizations. "But I thought," he started, struggling to articulate his thoughts. "I thought I could just change you, mold you into what I wanted. Isn't that what you wanted too?" "No," Lily said firmly, her voice rising with a newfound strength. "I wanted to be accepted for who I am, not transformed into someone's ideal. I'm not a project. I'm a person." Sarah nodded in agreement, her grip on Lily's hands tightening. "You were never a project, James. You've just reduced her to a bet to prove a point. But you don't understand the consequences of your actions." James flinched at the harsh truth in her words. He shifted uncomfortably, his bravado faltering. I didn't mean to hurt you, Lily. I just thought—" "Thought what?" Lily interrupted, her voice fierce. "That you could buy me? That you could change me with money and status?" "It was all a game," James shot back defensively. I didn't think it would matter." "Didn't think it would matter," Sarah exclaimed, incredulity lacing her voice. "You're playing with her life, James. You're treating her like a pawn in your little game of superiority. You need to see beyond your wealth." James swallowed hard, his throat dry. The weight of his arrogance pressed down on him like a stone. He felt the walls he had built around his heart begin to crack as he listened to Lily's voice, filled with pain and defiance. "I'm tired of being treated like I'm less than," Lily said, her voice steadying. "I'm not ugly. I'm not broken. I'm just lost, and I need to find my way back." James felt a pang of guilt twist in his chest. He had been so focused on proving something to himself, to his friends, that he had failed to see the person standing before him, the real Lily, her spirit, her passion, her struggles. "Maybe you're right," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've been so blind." "Blind to what?" Lily asked, her gaze unwavering. "Blind to the fact that I was looking for something in you that I thought I could control." But I see now, I see that I was wrong. You're not just an extension of my wealth. You're a person with a life, a past. I want to know you. Really know you." Lily searched his eyes for sincerity, her heart pounding in her chest. For the first time, she saw a glimmer of something different in James, a hint of vulnerability that made her reconsider her own feelings. "Can you really mean that?" she asked, her voice softening. "I want to learn from you," he said, stepping closer, the distance between them shrinking as he spoke. "I want to understand what you've been through. I want to help you find your way back, not as a bet, but as a partner." "Why would you want that?" she questioned, skepticism lacing her words. "Because I realize now that true worth isn't measured by wealth or power. It's measured by kindness, compassion, and understanding. You've shown me that, and I want to be a part of your journey, however long that may take." As James spoke, a flicker of hope ignited within Lily. She had spent so long fighting against the world's perceptions, and now here was a man, once so arrogant and dismissive, willing to challenge his own beliefs for the sake of their connection. "Maybe," she said slowly, "maybe we can figure this out together. But it won't be easy. I need you to understand that you can't just sweep in and fix everything. I have my own journey to navigate." "I'm willing to walk that path with you," James replied earnestly. "I want to be there for you, to support you in every way I can." Sarah watched the exchange with a mixture of hope and caution. She had witnessed so much pain in Lily's life, and while she wanted to believe in this newfound connection, she also knew that trust took time to build. "Just remember, Lily," she said softly, "you owe it to yourself to prioritize your own healing. Don't lose sight of who you are in this process." Lily nodded, feeling the weight of Sarah's words. "I won't. I promise." With that promise hanging in the air, a tentative understanding began to blossom between them. In that moment, the boundaries of wealth and beauty blurred, and two souls found themselves on the precipice of something profound, a chance to redefine their lives together, not as master and pawn, but as equals, embarking on a journey of discovery, healing, and perhaps love. In the dimly lit hotel room, the air was thick with tension. James Parker, still reeling from the revelations about Lily's past, stood with his back against the wall, grappling with emotions he had long buried beneath layers of arrogance and entitlement. He looked over at Lily, who sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. The woman he had once viewed as a mere pawn in his game was now a complex tapestry of dreams and pain, woven together in a way he had never anticipated. "Lily," he began, his voice a mixture of uncertainty and desperation. "I didn't know. I didn't understand any of this." He took a step closer, noticing for the first time the way her hands trembled slightly in her lap. "You're so much more than I ever gave you credit for." Lily looked up, her gaze piercing through the dimness, filled with a mix of vulnerability and defiance. "What do you want from me, James? Do you want to fix me? To mold me into something you can showcase to your friends?" Her voice cracked, revealing the hurt beneath her tough exterior. "I'm not a project for you to complete. I'm a person with dreams, desires, and I've lost so much." James felt a pang of guilt as her words hit him like a physical blow. "I never intended," he started, but she cut him off, her voice rising slightly. "Intention doesn't matter if you don't take responsibility for your actions," she exclaimed, frustration bubbling to the surface. "You think that by throwing money and gifts at me, you can erase the years of struggle I've faced. It doesn't work like that." He fell silent, realizing the depth of his ignorance. The very privileges he had taken for granted had blinded him to the harsh realities of life. "You're right," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I could win you over, prove a point. I thought I could change you." Lily's expression softened slightly, but the hurt remained. "Maybe I could have let you in, but you made a bet out of my life. You turned me into a challenge, not a person." She paused, biting her lip. "And now I don't know where we stand." James felt a flicker of desperation ignite within him. "I want to understand you, Lily. I want to know what you dream about, what makes you who you are." He hesitated, collecting his thoughts. "I want to be a part of your life, not just some wealthy husband who thinks he can solve everything with money." As he spoke, Lily's eyes narrowed, assessing him. You think it's that easy? Just because you say you want to understand me doesn't mean you can. You've spent your life looking down on people like me. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. But maybe there's a chance for us. But it starts with honesty. James nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. Okay, then let's be honest. I've been a fool and I need to know what you want. Lily looked away, her gaze drifting toward the window where the city lights flickered like distant stars. I used to want to be an artist, she said softly, almost as if she were afraid to admit it. I had dreams of doing something meaningful, of creating beauty in the world. But life has a way of crushing those dreams. Why didn't you pursue it? He asked, genuinely curious now, leaning in closer. I let fear take over, she confessed, her voice trembling. I thought I could never make it, that I wasn't good enough. And then I lost everything. My family, my home, my sense of self. She paused, her breath hitching. Now, I'm just trying to survive. James felt a pang in his chest as he listened to her story, the realization that he had contributed to her pain dawning on him. I'm sorry, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I could make you happy, but I see now how wrong I was. Lily wiped a tear from her cheek, her expression softening slightly. It's not just about happiness, James. It's about respect and recognizing each other's worth. You don't know what it's like to feel invisible, to be judged solely on your appearance. James took a deep breath, the weight of his arrogance lifting slightly. I want to change that. I want to see you for who you really are, not as a trophy or a bet. He paused, searching for the right words. And I want you to know, I truly care about you. Just as the moment of connection began to solidify, Lily's expression shifted, a shadow passing over her face. James, there's something else I need to tell you, she said, her voice trembling. What is it? He asked, anxiety creeping in. She took a deep breath, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. I'm pregnant. The words hung heavy in the air, and James felt as if the ground had shifted beneath him. Pregnant? He echoed, his mind racing. Are you sure? She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I didn't know how to tell you. Given our situation, I thought it might complicate things even further. She paused, her voice breaking. But I can't raise a child in this environment. I need to protect this baby, James. I think it's best if I leave. James felt his heart drop. The reality of the situation crashed down on him like a wave. Leave? Lily, please don't say that. We can figure this out together. He stepped closer, desperation in his eyes. You don't have to do this alone. But I can't raise a child in a world that sees us as nothing, she replied, her voice thick with emotion. I want better for this baby. I want them to have a chance. James's mind raced as he processed her words, realization dawning upon him. You think I'm just going to abandon you, this child? I've been a fool, but I want to change. I want to support you, Lily, no matter what it takes. Lily shook her head, her expression torn. You don't understand. Your world is so different from mine. I can't be a part of your life if it means sacrificing my own identity. I won't let this baby grow up feeling worthless. In that moment, something inside James shifted profoundly. He stepped forward, taking her hands in his, feeling the warmth of her skin against his. I love you, Lily, he confessed, the words spilling out with a sincerity he had never felt before. I realize now that true worth isn't about wealth or beauty. It's about love, compassion, and understanding. I want to be your partner, not just your husband. I want us to raise this child together. Lily's eyes widened, the shock of his confession washing over her. You love me? Yes, he affirmed, his grip tightening around her hands. I love you for who you are, not what you represent. I see your strength, your resilience, and I want to support you in every way I can. Tears streamed down her face as she searched his gaze, looking for sincerity and a glimpse of the man she had begun to fall for. You're serious? Absolutely, he replied, emotion thick in his voice. Let's build a life together, one that honors who you are and the dreams you've held on to. I'll stand by your side as your partner and the father of our child." In that moment, the walls Lily had built around her heart began to crumble, replaced by a flicker of hope. "You mean it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I do," he promised, his heart racing as he leaned closer. "I want to make this work, no matter what it takes." With that, Lily's resolve melted away, replaced by a wave of relief and love. She nodded slowly, a tearful smile breaking through her anguish. "Okay, let's try. Together." As they embraced, the weight of their past struggles began to lift, replaced by the promise of a shared future. In that moment of connection, both James and Lily understood that true worth lies not in wealth or status, but in the richness of the heart and the bonds they were forging together.